I graduated from high school 10 years ago. That's fucking crazy to say. But I thought since it's been 10 years since high school that I would sit down and like write out all the cool things I've done and accomplished since then. And I'm sure I missed a few, but this is the list that I came up with, and it's quite long, which is fucking awesome to see. So this is a reminder, if you think you haven't done enough or accomplished enough in your life, if you sit down and write it down, you'll realize you've accomplished more than you thought. So here we go. And these are not all in order. I started in order, but then I would remember things that happened earlier when I was making the list, so that's just what it is. So I graduated from high school. I went to the Dominican Republic with my best friend Jamie. I started university at the University of Calgary. I escaped an abusive relationship. I moved into my first apartment with my friend. I worked as a manager at McDonald's when I had temporarily dropped out of university, although at the time I didn't think it was temporary. I've gotten 9 tattoos and my nose pierced since high school. I had previously gotten down to the healthiest weight I'd ever been at, and I'm working on getting back there again. I moved to Germany. I worked as an au pair there in Germany, which if you don't know what an au pair is, it's basically a nanny that's part of the family. That's simply. Maybe I'll make a video later to talk about my experience as an au pair. But yeah, I got my B2 certificate in German, which is just like the European Framework of Language Learning, level B2. And I got that in Germany. I traveled with my friends while living in Germany to a few places. I went to Oktoberfest. I traveled to Ireland all by myself for an entire week, which was my first solo trip ever. I traveled with my parents to Amsterdam and Berlin when they came to visit me when I was living there. I moved back home. I grew a pair of balls and broke up with somebody for the first time who was not serving my life. Because before that, I was always the one to get broken up with. And if I wanted to end the relationship, I would like do things so that they would break up with me so I didn't have to hurt them, which is stupid. But yeah, that's what I was like in high school. Anyways, I went back to university. I did summer classes and spring classes to help me catch up on the time that I had missed. I worked as a German teacher at a private school. I met the love of my life. I moved out of my parents' house again for the second time. I graduated from university and I made it onto the dean's list in my final year of studies. I traveled with my partner back to Germany and showed him the place that made me who I am. It really shaped me living there. We also went to Austria and France on our trip. I started my business, Melodic Imagery. I became, in my opinion, an amazing concert photographer. And that's not just my opinion. I've had people tell me that too. So I'm like usually a humble person. I don't like bragging about my skills, but that's that. I produced and filmed various music videos. I started shooting weddings. I toured as a photographer 3 times on 3 different tours, and I'm hoping that I'll tour again on more tours in the future as a photographer and also as an artist. I recovered from my PTSD from that abusive relationship I escaped through therapy. I got help for my bipolar disorder, which has led to me being stable for almost 8 months now, which is actually the longest I've been stable since high school, which is fucking awesome. I've traveled to Mexico twice. I stood beside one of my best friends as her maid of honor on her wedding day, and I also threw her a killer bachelorette weekend in Kelowna. I traveled to Colombia to see one of my best friends from my time in Germany and visit her. I got my dog Era with my partner Chris. I started working on my debut album, which is coming out later this year. After like 10 plus years of just like writing songs in private, I'm finally putting it out. I'm so excited. I have had 2 nasal surgeries. The first one to remove a non-cancerous tumor, and the second one was because the first surgery, my nose never healed. So she went back in to remove more tissue to hopefully heal it. And so far, so good. Like, I'm feeling better than ever before. That was in December, so like very recent. I've had skin cancer removed twice, which I think is just something to note because it was scary and I made it through that, and I haven't had skin cancer since, so that's cool. I got to see one of my favorite bands of all time, Red Hot Chili Peppers, in Vancouver. I went to WrestleMania in Las Vegas last year with Chris. I went to Virginia for the first time, which was cool, to see my friend's wedding. And I've hiked to the top of a mountain. That was back in university. And you know what? I'm going to add it in here. I didn't write it down. But in Colombia, we went up to the top of a volcano, which was really fucking cool. And the last thing I wrote was I shot my first destination wedding ever last year, which was an incredible experience, and I hope to shoot many more. But yeah, that's kind of like all the shit I could think of that I've accomplished in the past 10 years. I'm sure there's more things that I forgot and that I will think of later, but honestly, I'm really proud of myself. I've done so much cool stuff, and when you sit down and write it down, you really start to see that your life has a lot of meaning and you've done some cool shit in your time, even if you don't realize it on a daily basis. But if you liked this video, maybe, give it a like and comment, and maybe I'll do some story times from some of the things that I mentioned that I did in my life.